What makes a good Scotch good? This question comes up constantly, and honestly, it is a fair one. People in the whiskey community throw around words like complex and well-balanced without always explaining what any of that actually means. If you are newer to Scotch, it can feel like everyone is speaking a language you were never taught. So in this video, I want to give you the 10 signs to look for when figuring out if a Scotch is actually good or not. Now, the most important thing to understand up front is that Scotch drinking is personal and subjective. What someone else calls a bad Scotch might be your favourite bottle. Maybe it reminds you of a trip to Scotland, or it was a gift from your father, and that is totally fine. These are just general guidelines to help you navigate with more confidence, not the final word. Scotch should always be something you enjoy on your own terms. With that said, let us get into it. Number 10. The distillery behind the bottle. One of the first things worth paying attention to is who actually made the Scotch. The distillery is the home of your whiskey, where the barley was malted, the spirit was distilled, and the liquid sat aging in a warehouse for years. Brand name is not everything, and you should not buy a Scotch just because you recognize the label, but a distillery with a long history of consistent production is usually a good sign. Think of Glenfiddich producing single malts in Speyside since 1887, or Laphroaig on Islay, making intensely smoky Scotch since 1815. But plenty of smaller, more affordable distilleries produce incredible whiskey too. The point is to pay attention to where it comes from and what kind of track record that place has. A distillery that has been doing things the same way for over a century is not doing that by accident. They have earned that longevity. Number 9. Understanding single malt versus blended. This trips a lot of people up. A single malt is made entirely from malted barley at one distillery. A blended Scotch combines whiskies from multiple distilleries. Here is where people make a mistake. There is a belief that single malts are automatically better than blends, and that is simply not true. Johnnie Walker Blue Label is a blend. Compass Box makes some of the most creative blends on the market. The craftsmanship that goes into marrying dozens of whiskies into something balanced is an art form, so do not write off blended Scotch. Both categories can be exceptional and both can be mediocre. It comes down to who is making it and how much care goes into the process. Next time you see a blended Scotch on the shelf, give it a fair shot before writing it off. Number 8. The region it comes from. Scotland has 5 officially recognised whisky regions, and each one produces Scotch with its own personality. Speyside in the northeast has over 60 distilleries and tends toward fruity, sweet and elegant Scotch with notes of apple, honey and vanilla. The Highlands is the largest region and incredibly diverse, producing everything from bold and fruity to light and floral, depending on whether a distillery sits on the coast or in the mountains. Then there is Islay, the small island that makes some of the most intensely flavoured Scotch in the world, with a heavy peat smoke, sea salt and iodine. If you have ever tried Ardbeg or Lagavulin, you know exactly what I mean. The lowlands produce lighter, more delicate Scotch, often with grassy and floral notes that make them a great starting point for people coming from vodka or gin. Campbelltown, which once had over 30 distilleries and is now down to just 3, makes briny, robust whiskey with serious coastal character. Knowing these regions helps you figure out what styles you gravitate toward, which makes shopping a lot easier. Number 7. The cask and wood influence. This is massive. Some experts estimate that up to 60% of a Scotch whisky's flavour comes directly from the wood it was aged in. More than the grain, the water, or the distillation itself. The most common cask types are ex-bourbon barrels from the United States, which add vanilla, caramel and coconut notes, and sherry casks from Spain, which contribute dried fruit, spice and chocolate. Some distilleries experiment with wine casks, port casks and rum casks for unique layers. There is also the difference between first fill casks, which have never aged Scotch before and give up tons of flavour, and refill casks, which are more subtle. When you see double cask on a label, that means Scotch from different wood types was combined for a more layered result. Number 6. The age statement. The number on the bottle tells you how long the youngest whiskey in that bottle sat in oak. By Scottish law, Scotch must age a minimum of 3 years. Many people assume older means better. While age can add complexity, it is not the whole story. A beautifully crafted 8-year-old from a quality first-fill sherry cask can outshine a tired 18-year-old from an exhausted refill barrel. You will also see more bottles with no age statement. That means the distillery blended whiskies of various ages for a specific flavour profile, and plenty of outstanding Scotch has no age on the label. Pay attention to age, but do not treat it as the only measure of quality. Some of the best drams I have come across were under 10 years old, and they had more character than bottles twice their age. If you're finding this helpful, hit subscribe. I cover Scotch and whiskey topics every week. Number 5. Alcohol strength and alcohol by volume. Most Scotch is bottled at 40%, which is the legal minimum. That is fine for casual drinking. But at 46% and above, distilleries can skip a process called chill filtration, which is when the whiskey is cooled so that heavier oils and fatty acids get filtered out. This keeps the Scotch looking clear in the bottle, but it strips away depth and texture. So when you see non-chill filtered or natural colour on a label, that is a good sign. It means the distillery left all those flavourful oils intact and did not add artificial colouring. If you try a cask strength Scotch and it feels too intense, just add a few drops of water. That actually opens the whiskey up and releases more aromas. Number 4. Complexity and balance. A quality Scotch should have layers. When you bring the glass to your nose, you should pick up multiple aromas, maybe baked apples or dried apricots up front, then vanilla or toffee from the cask, and maybe a whisper of spice at the edges. When you sip, the flavors should evolve across your palate. That is what people mean by complex. It is not one flat note hitting you over the head. Balance is the other half. Even an intensely peaty Islay Scotch should feel balanced, with sweetness or citrus keeping it from being one-dimensional. A Scotch that is all smoke and nothing else gets tiring fast. The best bottles give you something new to discover every time you go back to them. And if you want to really taste what a Scotch offers, pick up a Glencairn glass. That tulip shape concentrates the aromas and makes a bigger difference than you would expect. Number 3. The finish. The finish is what happens after you swallow. A good Scotch leaves a pleasant, lingering aftertaste that can last several seconds to over a minute. You might notice warm spice, gentle oak, or dried fruit that slowly fades. With an exceptional bottle, the finish almost tells its own story, starting as one flavor and transforming into something else entirely. On the other hand, if the flavors vanish immediately or leave behind something harsh and bitter, that is usually a red flag. A short, flat finish is one of the easiest ways to spot a lower quality Scotch. So next time you are tasting, pay attention to what happens in those moments after you swallow. That is where a lot of the magic lives. Number 2, value and collectibility. I am not saying you should buy Scotch as an investment, but a good Scotch does tend to hold a decent portion of its value. A bottle of Highland Park 12 or Glenfarclas 12 might cost $40 to $60, and because they are well regarded, the second-hand market stays healthy. On the higher end, limited releases from Macallan or Springbank can appreciate significantly. Beyond collectibility, value is simpler than that. A good Scotch should feel worth what you paid. There are outstanding bottles at every price point, from a $25 Monkey Shoulder to a $500 Macallan 18. The question is whether the quality in the glass matches the number on the tag. And finally, number 1. Number 1. Your personal connection. A good Scotch is one you actually enjoy drinking, full stop. You can check every other box on this list, but if you do not enjoy it, none of it matters. And the reverse is true too. Maybe your favorite is something enthusiasts would call entry level. Maybe it is the bottle you shared with your best friend on a special night, or the one you picked up at a tiny distillery during a trip through the Scottish Highlands. That personal connection transforms any Scotch into something meaningful. A lot of enthusiasts buy bottles to mark milestones, a promotion, a wedding, a big life moment. In those cases, the specifications are almost irrelevant. If a Scotch is connected to an important memory, it is always going to be a good one. Scotch should be fun, it should be personal, and we should not take ourselves too seriously when exploring this hobby. You absolutely want to pay attention to the distillery, the region, the cask, the age, the alcohol by volume, the complexity, the finish, all that good stuff. But the most important thing is that you like what is in your glass and you are actually going to drink it. Because at the end of the day, Scotch was made to be enjoyed, not just stared at on a shelf. Thanks so much for watching. Make sure to subscribe if you want to stay up to date on all things Scotch and whiskey. I will see you in the next one.